On this episode, we'll be listening to the third of 4 cantos from my story, The Lay of Never Always. Enjoy.
The Lay of Never Always, Canto 3rd, Summer. In a shady glade at noontime, dappled here and there with sunshine, danced and sang a crystal fountain, spraying mist and light about it, like a child so radiant smiling, cheering every heart around it. From the fountain sprang a river, winding, babbling, soft and gentle, o'er its rock and pebble bottom, through the glade, and down the mountain, winding through the land of Faerie, till at last it reached the ocean. All around the glade were scattered oaks and poplars, ash and beech trees, granting any weary traveller cool relief from heat's oppression. There in silence sat the watchman, resting by the singing fountain, most his martial gear discarded, save his sword and leather jerkin, and his cloak of faded crimson. Many were the strange adventures that already he'd encountered in the land of Never Always, and he'd borne them all with courage, and with ever-growing wonder, and it seemed he had not suffered, but in truth looked all the better. Lean and strong had grown his bearing, which had once been stiff and rigid, and his eyes once dark and dreary brightly shone with light and valour. After listening to the fountain with a bearing of contentment for a quarter of an hour, rose the watchman to continue on his way where his feet led him. As he journeyed, still the music of the fountain seemed to haunt him, filled him so with awe and wonder, that he started that a stranger had been walking near beside him, for he knew not when he joined him, and the watchman rightly took him for an elven lord of Faerie, stared at him in deep amazement, filled with trembling and with wonder. Tall and graceful was his bearing, lightly stepping, almost floating, so at ease in that wild country, richly dressed in blue of midnight, with a cloak which shone like moonlight, round his waist a belt of crimson, from which hung no sword nor weapon, for he feared no Fae nor spectre, and upon his head a ringlet, wrought of silver, held a crystal, shining like the star of morning, and it seemed the very same light shone more brightly from his visage. "Do not fear," the fairy told him, with a voice like bells of silver, seeing that the watchman saw him. "You seemed deeply moved with wonder, wishing not to break your musings, but desiring of some friendship. Since we travel down the same path, I fell into step beside you. Let me therefore travel with you, that we may share hearts together, and bring joy to hearts o'er-troubled, aching for their kin and homeland." "Why, my lord," replied the watchman, "why seek friendship with a mortal, who will only fade and wither like the leaves in changing autumn, while your lordship is immortal, ageless as the earth's foundation? Tell me how you know for certain that we go the same direction. I have but my feet to guide me, and I know not where they lead me. Aimless is my wandering journey. Rest and home there are not for me on the shore of Never Always. I shall always be in exile, since my service to my master was adjudged to be unworthy." "Much I know, some not yet happened," said the stranger, smiling kindly. "If you will not have my friendship freely as it has been offered, will you enter in my service? Let me be to you a master, that you may find home and purpose, and so cease your endless journey. Only this I do require, for you enter in my service, that you tell of your adventures, be they fair or be they fearful, since upon these shores you landed, that your true worth may show clearly, and the master of the tower be proved wrong in judgment of you." As they journeyed on together through the pleasant heat of summer, through the woods and fields of flowers, side by side the Fae and mortal, as the watchman told his story of the many strange adventures he had met in Never Always since the landing of the longship, and the parting from his shipmates. "When at first on shore we landed, and arrayed upon the beach-head, I espied far in the distance, on the high and lofty mountains, a fair maiden, white as birch bark, in distress, set by a monster, great and gnarled, old and ashen. and my blood burned hot within me to defend or to avenge her. Heedless of all my comrades, I set off to find and help her, and relieve the shame of exile, giving her my life for service, winning either death or glory. Long I held my course unchallenged, longer than indeed I'd reckoned, when at first I'd seen the mountains. Whether by some trick of Faerie, or misjudging of the distance, by my eyes, which once were keener, every time I thought me nearer to the mountains and the maiden, rising o'er some down or hillside, I espied they looked no closer. Yet I always saw the maiden, as if I could quickly reach her in a march of half an hour. But when many hours later, still appearing the same distance, I despaired of ever reaching either mountains or the maiden, and that if I ever reached her, far too late would be the hour, and my service rendered useless. Yet each time the road I travelled turned or rose so I could see her, still she grappled with the monster. He could not seem to defeat her, so I did not cease my journey. Of the strange and fair adventures that befell me on my sojourn, I cared not nor can remember. For I thought of that fair maiden under siege by that great monster, and my heart did burn within me, and held ever toward the mountains. When at last 3 days were ended, I arrived so worn and weary to the spot that I had noted, when upon the shore I'd landed. But I saw no beast nor maiden, nor a sign of that great struggle which I'd witnessed from a distance. Only saw 2 trees together, one a birch and one an ash tree, swaying in the breeze of evening. Cursing loud this trick of Faerie, I laid down beneath the birch tree, young and slender as a maiden, and invited sleep to take me. When I woke, a voice was calling, "Wake! Awake!" from up above me. Up I leapt, for there before me, where had been the gnarled ash tree, stood a creature in the moonlight, which the ash tree did resemble, like a tree in size and stature, old and twisted, skin like tree bark, many arms with great long fingers it stretched out as if to seize me. Shield and spear I raised in warning. Then I took a glance behind me, and I saw a stately maiden swaying gently right behind me, twice as tall as any mortal, standing ready to defend me. I rejoiced, for death or glory waited open-armed before me, with a cry which rent the silence of the mountains bathed in moonlight. I leapt forward, spear tip flashing, there to meet my foe advancing. Long we battled on the mountain, trading many blows between us. Many times upon my shield did he beat with force impressive, till I thought my shield would shatter, or my arm be torn asunder. Many times my spear flashed forward, piercing deep the monster's tough hide, till I thought that he must weaken from the many wounds I gave him. Through the night our fight continued, neither gaining ground nor taking, locked in combat like 2 dancers waltzing to a martial rhythm, till at length the dawn was nearing, and my foe with howls of anger threw himself full force upon me, crushing me beneath his body, and a darkness did surround me. When I woke, the sun was shining, and the birds around me singing, the 2 trees, the ash and birch tree, gently swaying high above me. All about me fallen branches lay upon the purple heather. One had landed on my buckler, pinning down the arm that held it, and another clove my high helm. Streaks of blood did map my forehead. Long I gazed upon the ash tree. Was this carnage of a battle fought with this tree's gnarled spirit, or the wreckage of a windstorm, and the struggle but a nightmare brought on by the night's unfolding? Were the howling of the monster merely echoes in the mountains of the wind which rushed against them, and the blows dreamed taken, given, just the cause of fallen branches broken loose before the gale? Though I knew not what the answer, still my blood burned hot for vengeance. Whether fey or simply nature, whether true or but imagined, I would fell that gnarled ash tree. I would rend it into pieces. From my gear I took a hatchet, kept from when I built the longship, thinking that it might prove useful, laid aside my spear and buckler and my cloven helm and armour, keeping only sword and jerkin underneath my cloak of crimson, and fell to just like a woodsman, till the blows rang through the mountains and the ash tree moaned and trembled. But no beast did issue from it. All the morn I was busy hacking at the twisted ash tree, and by noontide it was listing like a ship well beat and battered, with a groaning and a shudder, crashing, fell and broke asunder. And behold, its core was rotten, and within the tree trunk's hollow was an entrance dark and yawning to a cairn, which long lay hidden underneath the gnarled ash tree. Down into the cairn I ventured through the hollow of the ash tree. There I spied the gruesome figure of a large man laying prostrate on a mound of gold and silver. Death I smelled within the chamber, and I knew the giant lived not, but another death there lingered in the treasure of the mountain, and great lust to own it seized me, to possess this hoarded treasure, to build gate and walls around it, with my very life defend it. Then I knew a curse lay on it, for I am a man of service, not of hoarding troves of treasure, and I turned and quick retreated back to sunlight and the cool air. Nevermore I saw the maiden, though I lingered for a long time. And then at last I gave to wander through the land of Never Always, in the hope to find another to whom I could render service. Many days since have I journeyed, coming down from lofty mountains, till your lordship spoken to me, just beyond the singing fountain. Well you did to fell the ash tree, better still to leave that treasure, for it was a hoard of dragons all become who touch it, as you saw before the ash tree. I have deemed you very worthy, and would take you in my service, for I have a special errand which can only fit a mortal. But I first must bid you welcome to my humble home and tower. As he spoke, the road they travelled turned onto an open vista. There below, spread out before them, lay the shore and sparkling ocean. On the very strand a spire thrust itself into the heavens. From that spire of rock still living, Fae had carved a stately tower. When the Faerie saw the spire, flashed his eyes with mirth and sadness. Turning from it to the ocean, where there stood a gentle harbour with a longship therein mooring, he began to sing a sea-song. Then the watchman's eyes were opened, saw who truly stood before him, he, the singer of the sea-songs.